Bill, similar with Vanguard's globalization, how do you, in a global marketplace, look for partnerships that are lasting?
Well, you know, I think it's not a whole lot different than what John and Rick were describing. But the thing that we're always looking for is to fill a gap that we don't have. And increasingly, we're willing to look anywhere. And so I'll give you a couple of examples. I'm having a little mic problem there. Yeah? There we go. So one example is on the investment management side, we actually outsource a lot of our active equity to firms. You know, historically they were domestic firms. You know, we had firms in California, firms in Texas, firms in the Philadelphia region. Great. Thank you. Today we go anywhere, and so we just two of the last firms we just hired. One was in Scotland, and one was in partly based in New York and partly based in India. And the one that's part New York, part India is actually a startup. And so we're actually entrusting them with significant assets on behalf of our clients to run an active equity portfolio for us. And I think what's with the globalization, what we're finding, Rod, is we have to go anywhere and everywhere in order to find the right kind of partner for what we're looking to do. And increasingly, that means going to places that we're not historically not as comfortable for us. The second kind of partnership we have, so you've got the investment side, but we also do a lot of partnering with providers to take care of our people. I mentioned at the outset, one of the most important things for us is the human capital side. And there, I would say, interestingly, cost is only a partial driver there. Again, we're looking to fill gaps where we don't have a particular expertise. So much to John's chagrin, one of the things we've done recently in the last few years is we partnered with St. Joe's. St. Joe's University actually runs an MBA program on campus for us. We've put 300 people through this program in the last 5 years because we need, really, really strong people, as I was describing earlier, and we need to make it easy and affordable and very accessible for them. And so that again, we're looking for those kinds of relationships as well, where you can, bring some value to your people so that you're enhancing what they're able to do for you.
Great, thanks, Bill. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, in a moment or two, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions from our panel as well. Ed, your perspective on ingredients for good partnerships and lasting relationships.
So I think when the government partners with a private sector firm, the government has to follow one rule: let the private sector do what the private sector does best. So we didn't attempt to hand out the venture funds directly ourselves. We and the venture guarantee funds or the direct grant funds, we essentially did a competition, and firms that were in the venture capital business got the money, and there were some broad prescriptions as to how they would invest the funds in companies. But we would absolutely let them do it because we didn't have that expertise, nor could we develop that expertise. Second thing I think is important when the government partners with a private sector firm is the government can't be afraid to take prudent risks. You hear a lot of talk about winners and losers. And if you look back at the recent presidential campaign, the Obama administration was attacked. The Department of Energy was attacked for giving money to Solyndra. Now, Solyndra, unfortunately, some of those people were contributors to the president. Leaving that aside, Solyndra, on balance, was a fairly decent investment. It didn't hit. There are going to be losers. When government invests money to motivate or instigate development, there are going to be some losers. The key is whether your total investment portfolio as a government produces more winners than losers and produces growth and the money's spent wisely. I think most of you would agree that we did a pretty good job turning the economy of the city of Philadelphia around. And yet, literally 10 minutes from here, I can take you to 3 holes in the ground where we invested money and the developer never got off the ground, including one with the Disney company at 8th and Market. We invested money in Actually, we didn't lose that money. We haven't lost it yet. We invested money in clearing the property because Disney was going to bring something called Disney Quest to Philadelphia. We were going to be the second big city to have Disney Quest. They had it in Orlando, they had it in LA, and we tried it in Chicago. Didn't get a very good rate of return in Chicago, so they backed out. We haven't been able to develop that property yet, and it's still literally a hole in the ground. So you can't be afraid to have failures. If you do, you're never going to be a successful investor. And as a government, you're not going to be able to motivate investment and growth. You should obviously make your risks as prudent as possible. But you should be willing to take some risks. That's the only way we're going to motivate real growth and development.
Great, thanks. One more question for the panel, then we'll put up to our audience. We're in a world-class region. Rich mentioned earlier the river might be a barrier. We've got an 11-county greater Philadelphia region that has a mixed economy, a wide range of opportunity by sector and by size. But we still have plenty of work to do. And so, Bill, John, and Rich, what are the barriers regionally that we should address collectively so that we can fully aspire to the greater Philadelphia region version 2.0?
I think one barrier is the proliferation of lots of different organizations that lay claim to, innovation, entrepreneurship, or whatever the big topic is. And, I think part of what we need to do is be a little more disciplined about telescoping these groups, these individuals, and trying to point to, a couple of priorities and then, push the talent and the resources in that direction. So at Drexel this morning, we had a big summit on school reform, and as I looked around the room, we had government representative, we had Bill High from the public schools there, we had the Philadelphia Schools Partnership, which is a big private sector driven consortium of individuals and institutions, and it struck me that for the first time in a long time, school reform might have a chance because in that room was the authority and the resources and the drive to try to get things done together. And you take on something like school reform, or you take on something like building a real innovation economy. You can't do that with 72 different groups going in different directions. And so I think maybe one or two big efforts like this need to be pulled together. And I think great leaders like Ed Rendell in the past have done that. The turnaround in Philadelphia in the 90s. I mean, that didn't happen because 1,000 people went out and did 1,000 different things. We all got, behind a big strategy and we all pushed together. And I think we need more of that in Philadelphia.
John, I was hoping you were going to talk about education because I actually think the K-12 system is a very important part if we're going to attract people here. Increasingly, people want to live in the city and they want, K-12 education to be, at a higher level than it is. And I think all of the reform work that's going on is really key. As when you look at Philly, we have such a great university system. It's a huge competitive advantage. But if we fall behind in the high school side and only rely on the suburbs for great high school education, I think we're going to fall behind eventually from an economic development standpoint. I'd actually like to see companies do more. We've actually embraced several partnerships with local high schools, one out our way and one here in the city to just try to help things along. And again, if we can get a little bit more of that. The second thing, Rob, from my perspective, and this is pretty tactical, but I think the infrastructure, there still needs to be some infrastructure improvement if we're going to be a true global hub. And when you think about the mix of our economy, so much in pharma, life sciences, world-class education, financial services, these are increasingly global businesses, and that means more international flights at the airport. It means continuing to upgrade the train systems and so forth. But I think that infrastructure, if you're going to be a real global center, is really, really important.
Great, thanks. By the way, this room is the embodiment of civic space in a more consolidated way of working together. There was, for many years, the Eastern Pennsylvania Technology Council, and we at the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce had an organization around venture capitalists, and it was Dean Miller almost 3 years ago to the date, and Frank Ramatz, and many of you in this room said, let's merge, and so now we have affiliated with the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce well-run organization called PACT. We need now a PACT participant to ask the first question of our panel.
Well, let me jump in and say this. This room is also an example of a very successful public-private partnership. Craig Spencer, a terrific young developer, had an idea to bring back this space, which was the old Girard Bank, the old Girard Bank building, and came to us when I was mayor for funds, HUD-108 funds, to do a historic redevelopment here, and he did it. It's just terrific. Ritz has been a terrific property. This is a hugely successful historic redevelopment. It anchors the Avenue of the Arts as it comes off City Hall. It's just beautiful. This facility is incredible. It's just a very successful example of a good public-private partnership.
So who would like to ask the first question? Yes, sir. I see a hand right to the back.
I believe that if you look at Philadelphia, we've got world class in terms of academic institutions, etc. We have world class draw there. But one of the things that you don't have in terms of innovation, etc., is training on people. Do they go elsewhere? And where do they go? They go where the money is. And Philadelphia, Pennsylvania was absolutely a leader. They took the tobacco funds over to Ritz, like shall we say, ever since a certain governor has left, set up the technology innovation down at the Navy Yard. That funds has disappeared. We've fallen down to, I don't know, somewhere around 12% budget. What you need is to attract money here. That's where the money. Otherwise, you go to New York, you go to California, you go to Boston. And for innovators, you need to have access to that money. So what is it the panel sees to bring more investments to the real attraction here, or the source of academic and innovation and kind of your mind type of capital that is available here and prevent the competing.
I'm not waiting around. So, we're putting up 2 funds of our own, and we're creating basically a sort of for-profit venture company that we're going to try to recruit people like you to help us, put together. But we can cry all day about this problem, which is a real problem, or we can take it into our own hands. And look, there's plenty of money in this region. It's just maybe not been allocated and focused in the way that you're talking about. And so, my feeling is, look, we got to start somewhere. So we're putting, for us, some substantial funds in. We're hoping that's going to attract others. We'll get the right people allocated because, we're not in the business of allocating it from a venture standpoint. But we get all sorts of talent running around looking for, support. And oftentimes that support is no more than $50,000 to $100,000 just to sort of, bring it to the next stage. We can afford that certainly. And so I'm not going to lament Boston or San Francisco or North Carolina right now. I'm just going to say, look, let's try what we can take some responsibility for putting these funds together, get things going, and hopefully we will have enough successes that other funds will then come up.
And John's absolutely right. And that was the whole theory behind the Keystone Innovation Zones. Young companies can have access to grants up to $250,000 for the early stages of what they do, as well as access to the state's venture pools, Ben Franklin venture pools. So that was the whole idea of these Keystone Innovation Zones, to take the young entrepreneurs who are coming out of the universities, coming out of the MBA programs, coming out of the PhD programs, take faculty members who are forming businesses, and to keep them right on adjacent to the campuses where they're very familiar with it. If you're a young, bright PhD, you like where you've gone to school, you love to stay here, you go to New York, because I think that's where the money is, you can hold them in these Keystone Innovation Zones if they know about them. So, with that, I apologize, guys, but I've become a real capitalist, and NBC pays me, you guys don't.
If I might just finish off in answering that question from an economic development perspective, we spent a lot of time in private resources encouraging companies to locate to this region. There's a variation on that theme that you'll see in the coming weeks and months. We're going to encourage investors to come and set up shop in this region. And it may not be your usual suspects, the current and next gen folks that are already coming here due to other activity in the greater Philadelphia region that is a magnet. So for example, in part due to the low cost feedstock that is born now out of the surplus of natural gas in this broader Mid-Atlantic region, we are seeing an uptick in additive manufacturers that want to set up shop here in the greater Philadelphia region. These are international companies that have a different line of investors that are setting up shop here. And so it's the next logical and easy step in our mind to then encourage those folks to do that. But again, sir, we
All
are.
right? We don't need the rest of the world to go do our work. This community is workers, people that want to do something besides shop the paper and be facilitated.
So quick show of hands. And I think we heard a little bit about this from Bill McNabb. The workforce, the gap in qualified workers, skilled workers, to meet your own enterprises, on a scale of 1 to 10, 7 to 10 being a really significant issue, raise your hands. You thought the political polling was over. This is a flashpoint issue.
The issue isn't the workers. They're here because they're doing nothing but to the phone. The issue is something to do. Leadership. Okay? We've got the facilitator system in place. The capital's here. The movers and shakers of politics is here and reasonably well organized and structured. All right? We've got to have an idea of what we want to do, why we want to do it, who's going to do it, and how it's going to get done. All right?
And I might add further, we don't have the luxury of time to spin our wheels with a shotgun approach. I think the greater Philadelphia region, and asked the panel to address this, need to be laser focused by economic growth, by niche and opportunity. And perhaps, Rich, you mentioned the healthcare space. How do you, as innovators, how do you stay focused on where the opportunities are and not get too far afield?
Well, again, the key is for us is that we knock the river walls around the river. We've worked with Select Greater Philadelphia to try to do that in the region. I think the tri-state region is a great place to live. People are coming to the tri-state region to live. I think we have to work together as 3 states in the tri-state area to work together to innovate, collaborate, and attract people here from all industries. So I'm in the healthcare sector, so the key for me is physicians and nurses and developing relationships in that arena to make sure we have the most qualified in that area. So I think it's a tri-state issue for us, frankly. We should use it to our advantage.